Once upon a time, in the foothills of Mount Kilimanjaro in Africa, there lived a woman called Shiendo. Shiendo lived all by herself. She would wake up in the morning, clean up her house by herself, cook her food, go down to the river, wash her clothes, do a little farming in her little field, come back, cook her own meal and eat her solitary meal by herself. And as she finished her meal and before she slept, every night Shiendo would look up at the mountain and pray to the mountain spirits. I'm so lonely and tired for so many years. Why don't you send me someone? And she would go to sleep. This was Shiendo's prayer every night. One day, when Shiendo was working in the field, out of nowhere, she heard meow. A horse come and stop there, and off jumped a gentleman who said, I am the knight of the mountain spirits. The mountain spirits have heard your prayers. Take this. And into Shiendo's hand, he gave some seeds of the gourd plant. Shiendo looked at it and wondered what seeds could do. Sow these seeds very carefully and take care of them. She soon tied it up in her skirt, went back home and did as she was instructed to do. She sowed the gourd seeds, watered them and went to sleep. And the very next morning, she found that there were full-grown gourds all across her garden, 12 of them. She said, my oh my, they have grown really fast. What shall I do with them? Maybe I'll give it to the calabash maker who can make calabashes out of it. And so she scooped out the top of the gourds, took away the flesh and put all of them on the roof of the hut to dry. However, one very fine round one which she really liked, she placed it by the kitchen fire for herself. As Shiendo left for the field that day, the gourds up on the roof and the gourd down in the kitchen slowly sprouted a head. They sprouted 2 arms, they sprouted 2 legs, and all of the gourds became children. These 11 children on the roof held their hands and together shouted out to the little gourd down in the kitchen, Ketite, Ketite, our favorite brother, help us come down to work for our mother. Now I must tell you that the gourd beside the kitchen, because of the kitchen fire, was not so good with the development of its brain. So all that child could do was smile and raise his hand. All of the 11 children came down and did all the work that Shiendo had. They cleaned up, they cooked, they tended to the garden, they made everything ready for Shiendo. All of them except Ketite, who could simply smile and hold his hands. Once they were done with the work, they all played, the 12 of them together, and then Ketite went back, became a gourd again, and all of the children went right back to the roof and became gourds again. When Shiendo came back, she was so surprised to see all the work done in her house, and she was very curious. So the next morning, she pretended to leave for work, but came all around and hid behind her house and watched what was happening. She watched the head sprout out, the arms sprout out, the legs sprout out. She watched the children call out to Ketite. She watched them come down. She watched all of them do all the work. She watched them play, and she couldn't hold herself any longer. And quickly she went up to the children, held them all, and she said, don't go away, be with me, don't climb up to the roof anymore, stay with me. And they all agreed. And so Shiendo started a new life with these wonderful children who would work for her, help her, play with her, be with her all the time. However, it would bother Shindo that Ketite did nothing and just sat there smiling. So once in a while she would tell him, "Oh Ketite, why can't you be like your brothers and sisters? Why can't you be helpful?" But Ketite would just sit and smile. After many years, one day, as Shindo was carrying a pot of hot stew, she tripped and fell. And she fell on the hot stew herself. And what did Ketite do? He sat there and smiled. In a fit of anger, Shindo turned to Ketite and said, "Oh God, you're good for nothing, better off as a calabash." Even as the words left her lips, little Ketite there, his head went in, his arms went in, his legs went in, and he became a calabash. Shindo couldn't believe what she saw. She ran to the calabash and she cried and she wailed and she pleaded and she said, "Please come back, my little child. I didn't mean it. Please, please, please. I'll be very careful with what I say. I didn't mean it. I really didn't." But nothing happened. Soon the rest of the children came and asked their mother, "What is it?" She told them what had happened. And all of them quickly climbed up the roof and became girls again. As Shindo watched, once again they sprouted heads and arms and legs, held their hands together and shouted out to Ketite, "Ketite, Ketite, our favorite brother, help us come down to work for our mother." Slowly, the head sprouted and the arms and the legs. Ketite came with his smile, held his hands, and all of the children came down. Shindo quickly hugged Ketite and held him close and said, "My child, never leave me. I really promise to be careful with what I say." That's the African story, a very beautiful tale which can make us think about a lot of questions. One could really wonder, what made Ketite become a gird? What made Ketite come back? Isn't this a reflection of the Pygmalion effect that we talk about as educators? That what you find in the learners is what you believe you will find, the faith you have in your learners, the faith you have in the people you work with. When it comes to training, one-way medium such as PPTs or the overly and highly interactive games, as well as boring facts and figures, have all been explored in training. Well, I think it is worth exploring storytelling that engages your listener, that brings an emotional connect, a tug, and finally, it is an emotional connect that brings decisions or action.